It's Stevo with Veterans Voices with Joe and Stevo, and we're here for episode 7.
Hi, and this is Joe. For episode 7 today, we have a recently retired Navy commander who's a good friend of mine. His name is Ryan Blazevich. He is out of the Navy for only about 10 days now, and he's new to being a civilian. He hasn't been through any of the VA process yet, and this is going to be the first in a series of interviews that we're going to do with Ryan as he moves through the process of applying for disability, applying for different veterans benefits, and talking about his transition from active duty to retired. So that's what we'll bring you over the course of the next few months or year and a half, or however long it takes to move through that process.
Yeah, so this is really a great opportunity because this gets to the core of what we have wanted to do with this podcast, and that is to help veterans figure out kind of that transition system. So we're really looking forward to this. I haven't met Blazer, so this is going to be kind of exciting for me. So let's get to it.
Yeah, so here it is, episode 7 with Veterans Voices with Joe and Stevo. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 of Veterans Voices with Joe and Stevo. Today we have our guest, Ryan Blazevich, with us. He has just retired from the United States Navy, so congratulations to him. First thing I want to just address is it's still obviously the COVID-19 pandemic, and he and I are sitting right next to each other. So just to clarify that for all our viewers and listeners out there, we have quarantined together because when Ryan moved to Hawaii, he ended up staying at my house for about 6 weeks. And that was when the pandemic started. So we've already done the quarantine thing, and we're cool to be hanging out together. So with that said, we have Ryan as our guest today. Recently retired from the military. He's been out of the Navy for 9 days now. I know that because 9 days ago he came over to my house and we got really drunk together, and I had an 8-day long hangover. And this is the first thing I've actually been able to do since that happened.
Yeah, that hair's looking a little bit long for only 9 days.
I got a head start. I haven't had a haircut since February.
There you go. Because that's all about planning, right?
Well, that's when terminal leave started, right? So I don't know the actual last day that I do know the last day I worked. It was the day that I left Fallon, but February the 9th is when my terminal leave started. So that's the last, or the 10th. That's the last day I worked.
Yeah, so if you don't mind, because I haven't met you, so Joe knows your story, but do you mind telling me a little bit about, or just talk to us a little bit about, how did you get into the military, and what was your motivation, and then what was your career like? So maybe you can talk about some of that stuff.
Sure. Yeah. So I got into the Navy, went to OCS after I'd graduated from college. Graduated and had a couple of jobs, did some real world stuff, and didn't really have much direction, wasn't sure what I was going to do. And my uncle had recommended that I join the Navy and said I needed discipline, and I thought he was right. So I applied to OCS and got in, and not knowing any better, chose to be a SWO, and did the full SWO pipeline up to and including command. Met Joe the very first assignment that I had, which was going to the baby SWAT school in Newport, and we've been buddies ever since. My career was a little bit different than Joe's. I had a shitload of sea time. So out of all the years, out of 11 years and a couple of months of sea time, I actually ended up earning three overseas services, 8 sea service. Spent a year in Afghanistan on an IA, did another IA at the very beginning of my tour. So I got like 10 or 11 or 12 deployments. Every ship I was on deployed, and sometimes twice. Did a couple of IAs to get a couple of other deployments. So I was pretty operationally, my time in the Navy at sea was operationally intensive, just doing stuff at sea. So, by the time I got out of command, I was pretty well spent, just burned up and burned out. It's time to go. So here I am. I popped out on the other side. Last tour of the Navy was at Nautic, doing naval aviation stuff, and got to see how the other half lived, and it's better.
So if you don't mind me asking, so what ships were you on, or what type of like platforms were you on?
I was crew des mostly, but I did 3 carrier deployments. So frigates and DDGs. I never did a cruiser. And then I was on 2 different carriers and deployed 3 times on those 2 carriers.
Okay, cool. So special warfare officer. So what does a SWO do?
Surface warfare.
Yeah.
Oh,
Awesome.
surface warfare. See, you're talking to a retard here. So
He's Air Force.
I wouldn't know.
Yeah. I deployed with the Air Force too. Not working for the Air Force dudes, but I had an Air Force guy working for me, and it was okay. We were able to put the cork on the end of the fork so he didn't stab himself in the eye.
See, it's important to be able to like to explain what those acronyms are, because I didn't know.
That's all good.
But that's what makes this all fun, right?
The bottom line for surface warfare is that eventually the goal is that you're going to take command of a ship. So all the tours that you do as a division officer, a department head, and leading up to and through XO and CO is to train you to eventually be the captain of a ship. So I started off in an engineering, went to an operations, and then did combat systems and WEPS, and then got picked up for XO CO. And then in between, I got a master's degree at Naval Postgrad School, deployed a whole bunch more times. Did a year at the Pentagon, got picked up for an IA, well, not picked up, got pushed into an IA, spent a year in Afghanistan working for the Army, and then came back, went through XOCO, came out of that, and then wrapped up my tour, or wrapped up the last assignment I had, which was in Nevada, and submitted my retirement request and had my blind squirrel moment and ended up in Hawaii retiring as a contractor.
Yeah. So that's a lot in that's a lot of things that you just said there, right? So that wraps up a whole career.
Yep.
I mean, without really a lot of information, but I think the thing that really that I'd like to hear maybe some cool stories too, but some of your experiences, obviously, but I think the important thing is, so in that short period of time that you put in your papers, and then you got to 8 days ago, what was that experience like? That transition to going from regular haircuts to being a hippie like you are today?
I would say it's not as smooth as most, but I think a lot of things in my life haven't been as smooth as they possibly could have been. So, of course, I got lucky and I got out here to Hawaii just before the COVID stuff happened, which was fortuitous because I was able to get settled in and start working at the contractor job before things legitimately started shutting down. And I think that had I waited a week or two longer, the contracting outfit might have just said, yeah, why don't you just hold on? We're not ready to bring you to Hawaii. And then I could have just been kind of, sitting there spinning someplace in the US. So that part of it worked out really well. But in terms of the transition, I worked up until the very last day. I didn't really spend a whole lot of time preparing for the transition. I knew I had this job in my back pocket, and it was what was available and it was ready, and I was kind of interested in it. So I just went ahead and went for it, and it was in Hawaii, and I was going to be with Joe and Melissa, which was awesome. And that was about as much as I cared about. So I really didn't have to worry about a whole heck of a lot leading up to the transition, only getting all the stuff I needed to do based on the amount of time I had after I had the approved retirement orders, which was pretty quick. In about 5 weeks, I did everything, not including the ETGPS stuff, because I had done that the year prior. And I actually ended up separating almost a year to the day from completing that ETGPS course.
So let me stop you there. So what is that? Can you explain what that is?
Not really. It's a week long. That's 3 days, right? So it's 3 days of like stuff. Some of it's interesting, some of it's useful.
So let me just jump in real quick. So what we're talking about is a course provided by the Navy, specifically in this case, but it's available to all service members. It's a transition course, and it teaches you how to go from being the military mindset to the civilian mindset. You learn how to do a resume. You learn how to do things that will pertain to you working in the civilian world. So that's the course that we're talking about. So you did that a year ago.
And it's like most things in the military, it's geared towards the lowest common denominator. So it kind of baselines everybody. And so I would say maybe 25% of it was useful to me. I took 1 page of notes and then never looked back at them. I even forgot to do the capstone course and showed up at the, I'm trying to frantically gun deck my checkout sheet so that I can get the hell out of there. And the question gets asked, when did you complete capstone? I was like, cap what? And I was like, oh, I vaguely remember that being mentioned and me supposed to schedule something to go to San Diego to go do this. And I'm like, well, can this get done tomorrow? And I mean, it was fine. I mean, I'm a single guy. I don't have kids. There's no complicating factors. You know, I'm leaving. I've got a job. I don't need a resume. I'm financially independent. I'm not wealthy, but I've got more than enough. Like, I don't need a spending plan and a budget and, you know, all the other silly stuff that they need to do in order to prepare some folks who are in different circumstances with different life experiences and levels of functioning may have to do in order to be successful once they leave the loving embrace of the United States military, and particularly the Navy.
Well, you know, so that's actually pretty interesting because you kind of had it together. I mean, you already had kind of a plan, and especially that you slipped into a job in a location that you wanted to go. So you were way ahead of the game than most. Like, I remember when Joe was preparing to get out. I mean, it seemed like it was about a year, 2 years probably, that we were talking about it. He started talking like, hey, you know, so this is what I'm going to do. And, you know, he kind of put everything in place so that when he stepped out of uniform, there was no issue. But I think for a lot of guys, that all that noise stuff that you were talking about that really didn't apply to you applies to them. I remember when I was getting ready to retire from civilian, from federal government, and, you know, and it was going to be like, well, you're going to retire on this date and see you later. It was nice knowing you. Just don't ever call us again. That was kind of like that. But I pushed them hard to send me to the school for civilians, right? Which was that transition assistant. I went to San Diego, and I sat there, and like you, I kind of already had my financial issues worked out, but there were people in that class who weren't going to retire for 5 years. And I thought about that, and I remember sitting there and thinking, wow, right, they really have their shit together. If they're here 5 years in advance, first off, they're lucky they had a boss that let them go TDY to a school.
So my comment to that is that guy probably wasn't working. And
yeah, well, you know,
what are you doing 5 years in advance that you can just start planning your retirement now? Like,
yeah, it's like, and nobody does that. I remember when I was going, I mean, I had already decided I was going to go as soon as I could, but I mean, it just all of a sudden creeps up on you. And it's probably that way with you because you just put in the papers. There wasn't a lot of thought to do like Joe and have like this disciplined process, things like, what was it like for you, Joe?
Well, I came off my command tour and knew I had picked a job in Hawaii that I knew was going to be relatively easy, that I could sit in and do. It wasn't obviously not career enhancing, but it was a great place to go and have a normal Navy work schedule while you're doing all the retirement stuff.
Right.
And I knew I had to be in the job for at least 2 years. I ended up being there for almost 2.5. And that gave me plenty of time to do all the things I needed to do. But I think the bottom line for the people out there is that the sooner you can start thinking about it, because as we've said before, it will eventually end for everybody somehow, right? You want to plan for what you're going to do as a civilian in the future. So if I could ask you now, Blazer, about the VA stuff, have you had any interactions with the VA yet? And what's that been like? And how has COVID impacted your ability to do things with the VA?
So my first comment with the VA is whoever invented the 180 days prior, 90 days after inverse double negative rule, where you can't submit a disability claim inside of 180 days to your retirement, and you have until 90 days after you retire. I think that's the rule. Like, that just needs to go away. That's
it doesn't make any sense.
It makes no sense. No effing sense.
No fucking sense.
That-
That rural VA makes no fucking sense. That's what he
Terrible.
wanted to say.
So that I was like, that has put me behind. So I've gotten zero done with the VA. I called the DAV VA helpline there at Tripler when I got here, got a voice message, called the number, got the same voicemail message, sent an email, it got returned to me, and I finally got a hold of somebody in the DAV and they emailed me back. And first comment was kind of to chastise me that I had not submitted this thing yet. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I retired yesterday and COVID happened when I moved, and I was more worried about getting into my contractor role here and starting to function for my company so that I was providing value and less worried about, myself and the stuff that I needed to do to take care of myself for the DAV. And then the COVID thing happened. And so I knew that Tripler was probably the last place I needed to be wandering around, and then they closed the DAV office. So I have not started with the DAV or with the VA and disability.
Yeah. So if the world were normal right now, then the way to do that would have been to walk go to the benefits section at Tripler and sit there on that line of chairs and wait for them to open, and then you're going to get seen, right? And then they get everything set up. But yeah. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to do, which Joe probably said, hey, contact the DAV, Disabled American Vets, and let them be your advocate. Lay it all out for them, and then they just take over. It's like you just sit by the phone and wait for the VA to give you the appointments that you need, right?
Yeah, and it's not on DAV. I mean, they're doing their level best to take care of people, and I have no issues with that. The process is complicated, and I could probably get in there and at least type in some stuff and submit the claim and then let them go back and fix it. I've heard anecdotally that that's possible. I may do that. I don't know. It depends. I'm hoping to hear back from the DAV this week to get an appointment, but he said he would have his secretary get a hold of me and schedule an appointment, and it'll get done. So not worried about that. It's just when and, do I end up missing a month or two of disability payments that I would be otherwise entitled? So.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, I know if I were just, if I had been out for a number of years and I hadn't pursued any veterans benefits, because that happens with a lot of people. I waited 4 or 5 years after I got out. And, but like with Joe, you did it as part of your, it was almost seamless for you, right?
I submitted my package within the 90-day window prior to being retired, right? So I'd gone to the DAV. I found out this weird timing rule, right? And then I went and tracked down all my medical records, which were a little bit they were scattered. My medical record wasn't all in one place. Some of it was already in the repository back in the DC area. Part of it was in the Makalapa clinic in Hawaii. I gathered all that together and I got it submitted. And so mine was in before I actually retired. And then when I actually, the day I retired and got my DD-214, I went back with the DD-214, handed it to them, and that was the last piece of paper they needed, and my claim all went in at once. But there was not a pandemic occurring, and offices were open at the time when I was doing all of those things, which
right, and that complicates everything, right? It complicates everybody for everything anyway. My fear would be that what would happen in your case would be that because they haven't been seeing anybody for 2 months, that now the line's going to be backlogged. So my recommendation to Blazer would be, when they say that they're opening back up, go and sit out in front of that door at 6:30 in the morning and then be the first one in, because it's going to just back everything up, unfortunately. I mean, I don't know.
I've got Joe gave me the card to the guy that he used, and he actually emailed me back, and his secretary is going to set me up with an appointment. But that sounds like a terrible experience.
Yeah, no, we got him a appointment to go in at a time.
Yeah, I'll let them schedule me, and other than that, I'm going to work and do my thing and enjoy Hawaii and try not to let. I guess I'm done getting wrapped around the axle with the Navy. And if it ends up costing me a grand or $2,000, then I'll apply for a waiver. And if they don't give it to me because I submitted late, then whatever. It's just not worth it's not worth the effort and the energy to worry about it.
Well, I'm just telling you what I always did, but it's different, right? It's I think the thing that's in your favor is that you have people who are helping guide you. Like, again, it's cool that you were able to move to Hawaii, and that you had Joe there to kind of raise the flag and say, hey, so here's what I went through, and here's the contacts that I have. But a lot of people don't have that.
No, yeah, I had a built-in transition plan through Joe and Melissa, and it's fantastic. Like, I had a place to come and was able to stay, and we weathered the COVID thing together. He had already kind of scouted out like great places to live he thought that I might like, and of course I did, and moved into one of those spots and got set up and settled, and I'm working. It's a topic for another episode is the transition from military active duty to contractor. You could fill 5 or 6 episodes with the camaraderie that goes on between that. But anyway, getting all those pieces put in place so that I could function again, because I'm one of those lucky guys, right, that you hear stories about that, they were sitting in a desk wearing a uniform one day and they retire, and the very next day they show up in khakis and a polo, and they're doing the same exact job in the same exact desk. Well, fortunately, that's not exactly my situation, because I did not want to stay in Nevada. And I ended up in Hawaii doing roughly the same stuff that I was working on from Nevada. And, it was fortunate that I was out there, because I think that teed me up with the organization that I'm supporting in terms as a contractor. And so I got very lucky, and it's a great job with a great company, and I'm in a great place. So the Navy is slowly washing away from me, and it feels good.
Yeah, no, right on. I mean, that is, it's a big relief. Like, the whole military thing is cool when you're doing it, but as you get closer,
it's cool even while you're doing it.
You're ready. No, absolutely, it absolutely is. It depends on what you.
I don't know. I might have felt that at one point, but probably, I don't know, at some point in the last 3 years or last 5 to 6 years, something just snapped, and I was like, this is not good.
But that's what happens with everybody, right? I mean, everybody gets, it's really cool, and a lot of it has to do with maybe an assignment, or like they send you somewhere else and you go, this isn't what I want to be doing.
It's the nature of the organization. It will take as much as you will give. And if you're a guy who gives and puts the organization first, it will consume you. And then once you reach that point where you've been consumed, you just have to stop. And
right.
Fortunately, I was able to stop.
Can I jump in here for a sec? So that's a great point, because I think if you're active duty right now and you're listening to this, you need to really remember that the more you raise your hand, the more you say yes. Like there's obviously missions that need to be accomplished and things that need to be done, but you are not the only person that can do that thing. The military has a deep bench. You need to do your job. You need to do well, but you also need to take care of your family and take care of your personal business, because if you just let the organization grind you down, then eventually you just leave and you're broken, and then you end up outside the VA with your broken body and the inability to like really care for yourself anymore. So
yeah.
neither one of the three of us are in that position. Thank God, yeah. Because you could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Right. It's life can shit on you, and the military certainly can do that, and they do. So, some people handle it better than others, and it's clear. I'm really stoked that you are in a position where now you've transitioned out of that. So whatever funk was there is left behind, and now you get to move forward. And do
not completed yet, but it's in the process. Like, you don't just leave that funk behind. It's slowly falling away, and it feels good to be coming back to normal.
Yeah.
Finding parts of my personality that I haven't seen in a long time.
Yeah, well, that's cool. That's so hopefully, hopefully once the COVID thing gets resolved, then you'll get to go out and, experience Hawaii. And you've been there before anyway, but
Yeah.
it is a different, the whole place is a different personality. I mean, that's the one thing I love about Hawaii is it's really got that, it kind of forces you, the attitude of the place forces you to kind of leave all that baggage somewhere else. Otherwise, the locals will eat you up, and that'll be that.
So I honestly, like, being up here on North Shore with Joe, I could not have landed better, because this place is absolutely it's just pulling away all of the years of crap and the baggage that I've been carrying, and it's the right place to be at the right time.
Well, that's good. I mean, it's good that you can be here. It's great to have you. This is just our first. So this is going to be a series that we're going to do with Ryan. He's out now. He's been out of the military for 9 days, and he doesn't have any of his VA benefits. We're working on all of that. So we're going to bring him back periodically to see how he's progressing, see what he's done, see what challenges he's had, and then share those challenges with you so that you can learn from them.
Hey, Joe, before we get done with today's session, I want to talk about a couple of wins that the Navy had with me and in general. The DD-214 process, when you joined 20 some odd years ago, before computers were really a thing, your records are not in those NSIPS databases or whatever. So if you're active duty right now and you're retiring in between, anywhere in the next 10 years, go back right now and count up whatever medals and ribbons and crap is on your chest, pull out the page 13s and take them into your admin office and have them put them in NSIPS and verify them. That will make your DD-214 process way easier. So giant shout out to my admin at Nautic and Laney, who pushed me into that and was like, no, I need to see that. And I was like, what? And she went through and took care of me. And my DD-214 process was simple. I had 2 awards that needed to be added, and then I signed it and I was done. So DD-214 is done. And the ID card people in Pearl Harbor, those guys are amazing. So like, I've gotten my contractor ID card and CAC reset a couple of times, and new CAC cards. Every time I just walk in, no appointment, they give me a card same day. And on Monday, the day after or the week after I retired, I went in and got my retired ID card, no appointment, just walked in, they made it for me, done. So DD-214 though, those page 13 entries for all the sea service ribbons and comms and NAMs, they can't do awards, but they can do NUCs and MUCs and meritorious unit citations, which is what a MUC is, Navy unit commendation, and all that stuff, pistol ribbons, all the crap that's on your chest. Have that put in NSIPS and get it verified. All you got to do is show them the page 13 that was signed by the admin officer on whatever ship you were on, and do that now, and it'll make your DD-214 process way easier, because I wanted credit for all the stuff that I did on all those ships, and it's in my DD-214. So
yeah, that's actually really smart that you brought that up, because there's a lot of benefits that people have. A lot of those, they get a lot of points, like for civil service jobs, for instance. There's points that you can get towards, like the 10 points or whatever. But if you have an expeditionary medal or ribbon or whatever it is, if you had been in a certain deployment, then that qualifies you for different things. If that's not on your record, because over 20 years they transitioned from a paper file to some electronic file or something, that could all get lost. So that's really good that you brought that up, because that's something I never really thought about until you mentioned it.
Yeah, you can always go back and get your DD-214 corrected. It's just a bigger pain in the butt, and it's so easy to do online with the PSD and using NSIPS. It's really is that's a great process, and that's totally COVID friendly. So I had no issues doing my DD-214 during this pandemic thing. So good on you, Navy. Got that one right.
It's nice that you gave a shout out to the Fleet and Family Sports Center in Hawaii.
Oh, well, yeah, that ID card office is incredible. I haven't
look at I will say that about the one thing that I did like about Hawaii was that working for the government and for the military was that they really do have their act together on that island. You know, because there's so many people, all services are there, every kind of contractor, every kind of civilian, every kind of operation. So they really do have it wired, especially at that, the place down in, the Navy's PSD.
Yeah, a little shopping area.
Yeah.
Mall shopping complex.
Yeah. It makes things really simple. And I would say the same thing about the VA in Hawaii. Coming to Florida and then dealing with the VA bureaucracy here, it is much different than it is in Hawaii. Hawaii, it's very user friendly. Here you're trapped in the government bureaucracy. It's people don't want to help you. The rice bowl is very, very big for each office, and nobody wants to talk to each other. It's really a pain in the ass. So I'm glad that you got to go to Hawaii. I lived there for 20 years. It's really hard to get it out of my system. Even I've been here for 3 years. But when I went to Hawaii in January and stayed with Joe, it was like I had never left. Just kind of funny how that is, right? It's in your soul. So right on. So congratulations on the new life. It's exciting, and hopefully the next time we talk, we'll have like some really good examples of what to do and not to do.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate you being with us for this episode. We will see Ryan again. And make sure you follow us on all of our social media pages, like us on Facebook, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. All right. That's it. Anybody else?
Nope. That's a good thing. Nice meeting you, Blazer. We'll see you next time.
You too, Steve-O. Thanks, brother.
All right. Aloha.